Alright, so Dragon Ball Z Resurrection F has done a couple of different things, or has added a couple of different things to the DBZ canon, which I find very, very interesting. The first two things I want to talk about are basically things where it's like, oh, that stuff that was a long time ago, but technically we never knew about it and now it's canon. The first thing was Frieza telling his subordinate, like, hey, I never trained before in my life. I never had a reason to. And if I do, I'll probably, be like super amazing and epic, which Frieza definitely was in this movie. And I thought that was pretty interesting. It shows that Frieza is such a powerful character that it was kind of nothing. And the thing that's really crazy, my friend kind of mentioned that that he felt Frieza was defeated fairly easily. I didn't think so personally because of the how it ended at the end. I think it was kind of just typical and perfect. It was just like Goku saves the day, and it's like he has to save the planet, and boom, Kamehameha, take the whole thing out. Total evisceration and evaporation of all cells, in Frieza's body. But I thought that was a cool little thing. Like, I never trained before, and even back then, I was just like so freaking amazing that I had to force this guy to go Super Saiyan just to get defeated. And then training for, I think it was 4 months or 6 months or so, Frieza was able to get like the new, golden Frieza form. And I thought that was actually a really cool little bit of canon. Like, Frieza was just so powerful with no training ever. And, he became like that crazy tough villain, the first, crazy tough villain. So I thought that was actually really cool. And it just made me think, like, man, what if he had trained and, if he was Golden Frieza back then, Goku would have been nothing. He would have been toast. And it was just really cool. And even with this new training, technically, Goku still could have lost if it weren't for the fact that Frieza, they, kind of put it in and like, oh, you had this new form, but you kind of rushed into battle so quickly. That's kind of his downfall, was that he had like this super ultra form that even Goku technically couldn't beat. But, sort of Deus Ex style, it was like, well, you have this ultimate power, but you used it so fast, it becomes your weakness because you're going to run out and then be weaker than me. So that did kind of suck, and I kind of wish that Frieza could have survived. Somehow, if Frieza comes back again, it's like, alright, I'm training. They'd have to have like a new super duper ultra god Super Saiyan form to defeat him, if his body didn't burn through it so fast. But that was the first little thing that I really loved. The second thing, which was pretty insane, was the fact that Beerus was the one who was like, oh yeah, destroying the Saiyan planet, go ahead, I totally sanction that. You can do that. You can destroy this entire planet. And it was like, keep that under wraps and stuff when they were talking about Vegeta and, his planet having been destroyed by Frieza. I thought that was pretty crazy. I thought that was actually pretty freaking insane. Like, oh, you allowed that. Like, Frieza went to them, or, well, really went to Beerus, because Weiss or Weiss. Didn't see the last movie, so I already forgot the pronunciation, but I believe it's Weiss. But Beerus is like, oh, Frieza goes to Beerus and he just asks, like, hey, I want to blow up this planet or something. I find that really interesting, and he got permission from the Destroyer God to blow up this entire planet. So that was pretty interesting, and it makes me wonder, if they are going to do a third film where they actually do take out Beerus because they find this out. And they were hinting at that a lot in this movie too. I'm sure everyone kind of picked it up. They did it like 4 or 5 separate times. Like, boy, if they worked together, they'd be unstoppable. They'd be able to kill anyone no matter what. And it's like, well, they never do it in this movie, so I'm going to assume that that's some pretty massive foreshadowing for another film we're going to get. Or maybe it's foreshadowing for the series. That it could also be that. But, that was another little bit of trivia that they kind of added into canon. Or I guess technically Akira Toriyama added into canon. And I thought that was pretty interesting. Like, I don't know if that is going to be found out, but Beerus is kind of cool with the characters at this point. But he's still like this insanely powerful character. And I mentioned in my review, I still haven't seen the last movie, so I still technically don't know how that ended. Like, I know, like, right now it's just like, man, we sure love Earth food. And that's basically why they saved the planet at the end of the film. But I don't know. I mean, it would be totally Dragon Ball Z if that was how the last movie ended. Like, oh man, this cake fell out of my pocket, and then they were like, oh well, let's not fight anymore. But either way, that was a bit of canon that really surprised me. Um, the other huge thing that I want to talk about is definitely Vegeta being so cool in this movie, and also actually catching up and being on the same level as Goku, because that was really cool to me. I thought that was probably my favorite thing in the entire film, was that Vegeta, because that was something I hadn't heard at all. So I knew that he didn't go Super Saiyan God, Super Saiyan in the last film. And when that happened, because they have like the transformation where basically it's like they turn blue for a second. It's almost like Sailor Moon style where they get covered in one set color. And when they did the animation in the beginning for Goku, I was like, oh cool, it looks really sweet. I get to actually see it in the film for the first time, because I'd only seen like glimpses or seen it in a game for like a couple seconds. And then they showed Vegeta charge up and they did the thing. I'm like, no way. And he has the blue hair and stuff, and that was really cool to me. I thought that was super awesome. Also, the fact that he had that was just the first step of him being really cool in this film, because I don't think he takes a single hit in this movie. And technically, Frieza is kind of at a lower point by the time they start fighting. So I'm sure he would have, of course, been hit, but he wasn't. So that's kind of how I saw it. Like, he wasn't hit. He was doing the coolest moves too, because he was just like in the state of just anger. Like, he was doing those single attacks and stuff where he dodge and just do like one punch in the stomach, or he would just like block something and do like one blast. And it was really cool. And I do wish, and this is probably my only disappointment with the film, is that Goku was the one to defeat Frieza, because I feel like that would have been the ultimate thing. And it doesn't surprise me that it was Goku that won, or I guess that delivered the final blow, because that just makes sense. But I do wish that it was Vegeta. I wish that, Goku didn't have the energy to do it, and he just yelled like, destroy him now before he's able to do it or something. And that would have been cool. But he had like the most badass line when he was like, just with one hand, and he's like, don't even think of resurrecting again. And he's just gonna like obliterate him. And I wish that it ended that way. I wish that he just got defeated. Like, they didn't have to do the little ending time travel thing for me. I think it would have actually been way cooler if that was just how it ended. Like, Vegeta was just there and he just obliterated Frieza just like that with one blast, and he just like does like a super just attack and just destroys an entire area of the land just to hit Frieza, who's like right in his face, but he still does like a insanely powerful being that destroys like miles and miles of stuff. So I do wish that it happened that way instead of Goku coming in and destroying Frieza at the end. But it was still really cool. I still definitely enjoyed it. We got to see the time travel stuff happen. They had their little moment where everyone freaked out like everyone's dead and stuff. So that was definitely pretty cool. And, like I said, it was still a really cool scene, like seeing Goku come in and, they ended with a Kamehameha. So you can't really hate that. It's hard to hate that. The only way it could have been cooler is if he somehow did like a super fast spirit bomb, like boom, and he hit him with it. That would have been awesome. But it was fine. I still wish that Vegeta was the one that delivered the final blow, because Vegeta just does not get those moments ever. But it was still awesome. Like, he's on the same level as Goku at this point, and like I said, I don't know. Considering GT is no longer canon, I would love to see that change in Dragon Ball Z, where Vegeta and Goku are no longer constantly struggling against each other. They're actually on the same level. And like I mentioned, that could be something they're hinting towards either in another movie or in the series in general, where now that they are at the same level, it's like, well, we both get stronger together at the same pace, but they're still even. It's not just Goku anymore. Like, it might just be back and forth, like, and it typically is. It's always Goku, and then obviously Vegeta's right under there. But now they're at the same level. They're both Super Saiyan God, Super Saiyans, or Super Saiyan Gods, just to keep it simple. And it's really cool. I love to see that play out, and that's it's no longer like Goku and then Vegeta's like right there, really close, but can't ever do anything. I want to see them be on the same level, because, like I said, we don't get to see that, and as much as I love Goku being like the number one character and stuff, I love him as a character and stuff. But I've always kind of liked Vegeta a little bit more, and I think it's just because of his attitude, where he's just the let's freaking fight type of character, and maybe it's just because he's the one who pushes the action forward a little bit faster. Although they did great in this movie, they didn't. And I mentioned this in the review. I wish there was a bit more story, but it's hard to have more story than Frieza came back. He wants revenge. There's not much to that, so it's about as much story as it could be, and I'm okay with that. And one thing I found interesting, and they didn't. Frieza never technically found out, but they talk about future Trunks and how it's like, oh, we can only ever find one of the Super Saiyans that defeated you. And I thought that was interesting that they talk about that, and Frieza never learned that, future Trunks was killed, during the Cell games. And that was just in my head, like, when they talked about that, like, they can't find him because, he didn't retire. He was killed. Like, future Trunks died in the past. So that was just something that I kind of love. Like, oh, he doesn't know. And they never really knew who Trunks was or anything. When it's like, that's kind of cool to me. Like, he can't be found because technically he died. It's also kind of sad because I really love Trunks. I think everyone kind of does, but I always like Trunks because I just kind of liked his design more than a lot of other people's. Like, that's why I kind of like Vegeta more than most other characters, because he always has a cool design to me. His outfits are always the sweetest. Like, in this movie, I thought it was cool that he had the gray instead of his normal blue and white. So that was kind of surprising for me. I don't know if that changed in the last film or whatever. But I thought it was really cool. Still my favorite design. Then you have like Gohan in a tracksuit, which I was just like, okay. But he was still cool in this movie. He takes out the bull type guy, who I definitely thought was gonna be a tough opponent for them. I thought it was gonna be like that guy and then Frieza, and they'd have a tough battle with him. And it was like, nope. Gohan went Super Saiyan for like a split second, did like a Bruce Lee 1-inch punch, and the guy went down. I was like, oh man, that was it. I was like, okay, that was really surprising to me. But I love that scene because it was just really cool. And they did that a lot in this movie, like the sort of one punch knockout things, like when Frieza did it to Gohan, and he was just like out of his seat, and he just hit him, and Gohan just went down. And then they had the joke about the sensu beans being like a wonder drug and stuff, and like I loved all the jokes in the movie. They were definitely funny to me. But I just thought it was just a great movie all around. Like, a lot of really cool moments, a lot of the callbacks. Yamcha and Tien, or Yamcha and I can't even think of the other character's name. But they're both left behind because Tien's like, oh, they're just not strong enough for this. Everyone was laughing at that scene. That was definitely funny. The Galactic Cop character was definitely really funny to me. Reminded me a lot of Invader Zim. Kind of sounded like him a little, but it wasn't the same voice actor, unless he changed his voice a little. But reminded me a lot of Invader Zim just by the way he sounded. But I loved his actions. Like when he shot the people like all in their legs, and he does like the little silly stance and they all fall down. I thought that was pretty funny. And when he says like, oh, I thought you were, he's talking to Krillin, and he was like, I thought you were like too small and weird looking to actually be human. It was just really funny, like a lot of silly stuff. Krillin actually looked really cool. I wish he kept the hair in this one, because I know we get to see him with hair, and I guess he had it in the last movie, so I should definitely see that, to see that design of him. But I always liked Krillin with hair. I thought it was cool, but I've never seen him with like this short spiky hair. I always saw it when he had like a bunch of hair, and then after that, like he wasn't even fighting when he had hair like that. So I actually thought it was cool. I was like, oh sweet, I'll actually get to see Krillin fight with hair. So I guess I'll have to go back to the last movie to see that, because I was like, oh, he looks pretty sweet. And then it was like, I got to go old school, and he cuts all his hair off. I was like, oh, that kind of sucks. But I love the scene when he leaves, and I believe she's Android 18, and she's like, he's so cool. And it was just like this funny little scene. I love that. It was pretty nice. I liked all the little nods. We got to see a bunch of the different characters. We got to see Videl. We got to see Baby Pan. Great entrance too with Piccolo, with him just angry and just rocking Pan in a carriage with his foot. I love that scene. Everybody was laughing at that too. And so we got to see Videl, we got to see Pan, we got to see Bulma's father. We didn't see like Goten or Trunks or Chi-Chi or anything like that. So I was kind of surprised. We definitely got mention of Trunks, but that was about it. So that was kind of cool. I also love Bulma's design in this. I thought it was pretty cool. Like I said, she probably had this in the last movie, but for me, everything's all kind of new. So I liked her design in this, where she's in like a new outfit and stuff. Such a weird thing for me to notice, but her hair is definitely more blue than it is green now, like it used to be before, where it was like a real, like actually turquoise, where it's almost green and blue. It was definitely blue in this movie, so that was something like a random thing to notice after years of not watching Dragon Ball Z. Like, oh, her hair is like definitive blue. Like, there's no bluish green. That was just blue. But I definitely love that. They kind of reference the fact that she has a sister, which I've never heard of before in my life, and it also sounded like the guy said Trunks, but I know he didn't, because he said it had to be some other name, and I don't know if that's a brand new character. I think it is, because there were a couple other people that said the same thing. Like, some people were like confused that the space cop said that name. So if you guys know, definitely let me know. But I never knew that she had any siblings, actually, and that could have been in Dragon Ball initially, where they never said the name, maybe. But it was interesting, and it made me think, like, maybe Trunks is named after her sister, and that's where she got that from. Or I guess in the initial timeline, that's where she got that name from, was from her sister, because it was really close. I was like, I don't know what he just said, but it wasn't just Trunks. It sounded like he basically said Trunks with like a W in there somewhere. But either way, I thought that was interesting. Like, okay, well, they kind of introduced that. Um, well, it was very similar to Trunks' sister, actually, because they do. He does have a sister, and she looks just like Bulma with the hair, but she's honestly like of zero importance in the entire series. Like, they never talk about her, but technically they had two kids. It's just like she just doesn't mean anything though. So Bulma having a sister that just never gets referenced kind of fits in line with their family a little bit. Like, just sisters that just don't get talked about. You see them one time, maybe two or three times, and then it's like, oh, they have a name, but nobody cares. So that could be how they're playing that, just as like a little silly joke or something. But I love this movie. I thought it was definitely well done. Really cool to see it in theaters. Just get that full experience, because I haven't seen an anime movie since Pokemon. But I loved it. I thought it was really cool. I love the action in it. I loved, some of the little canon moments where it's like Frieza never having to train before, and Beerus basically sanctioning the destruction of the entire Saiyan race. And also the fact, like the Galactic God mentioned that his job is to keep Saiyans off Earth. That was kind of one of his jobs and stuff. So I thought that was interesting. That was just like their powerful thing. And maybe that's why Beerus sanctioned it, because they were just that race that was deadly and powerful and could really take over everything and destroy everything as an army, like he can as one single person. So yeah, it's fairly interesting. Also, his sneezing and blowing up an entire planet was something, because just tiny itty bitty little ball, very similar to Frieza, with some of his little finger motions, where it's just like simplest little thing, and then he'll just blow up a giant portion of something or destroy an entire city. That was pretty funny. And he just sneezed, and oh, there goes a planet in space. And then he blew up. They talk about him blowing up both suns and stuff, and of course, it's a great way for them to talk about the time travel. But great movie. I definitely enjoyed it. I'm gonna have to go back and see everything that happens in the past movie, so I can see how Beerus and officially becomes okay with not just flat out killing them. I believe I remember the story is that he was searching for someone, like the most powerful person or whatever. But I thought that was, I have to go back and see that. But I enjoyed how everything really connected to the last film and stuff, and it seems like it was almost like right after, considering how long they were training and stuff like that. It may have been like, I guess, a year after, or like 6 months or so, like, considering Vegeta didn't have the power in the last movie. I don't know how long it really took him. But even in the movie itself, when Frieza gets resurrected, it's like 6 months later. So, there's a definite time span in between the films in general, and then in the film itself, we already get 6 months. But I loved it. I'm excited for what we're going to get in the future of the series. Excuse me. Them constantly talking about Goku and Vegeta finally, teaming up and working together. At first, it was like, are they talking about like fusion again and stuff like that? But it's like, well, they've been there, done that, so it has to be just them, as Goku and Vegeta just fighting together as a team. So, it's definitely some foreshadowing, whether it's for another movie or for the new series. that's kind of, we just have to wait and see. But I love the movie. I want to know what, out of the really big moments, what were some of your favorite things? Like the big fight scene before Goku and Vegeta come in. I loved all that stuff. We got to see like Destructo Disc. We got to see Master Roshi do the first Kamehameha of the movie, which I actually thought was pretty cool. Like him being the first one to do it in the film really surprised me because you definitely assume it would be Goku, Vegeta, or maybe Gohan. After that, and then maybe Krillin would be number four, but. Master Roshi being the first one, I thought was actually really cool. I was like, oh, that really surprised me. And it was kind of awesome how he did it, too. And he just destroys, like, a bunch of people. And his staff, too, which was pretty funny. But definitely enjoyed the action in that scene and just all the cool moves. And then when they go to a different area, like everyone is like a forest and then fighting in the water and then fighting in a cave. I don't know where Tien, how he got to a cave, but Krillin got to a forest super quick too. So it was just a bunch of different locations that looked pretty cool. Gohan ended up in basically a valley. I don't know how he got there from the little ocean area they were in, but it was kind of funny, like, seeing that, like, how are they in these random areas? But it was definitely awesome. Like, I instantly ignored that. I was like, it's just cool fighting, so it's Dragon Ball Z fun. But I want to know, like, what were some of your favorite big moments? What you guys thought about Vegeta, like, doing Super Saiyan God Super Saiyan? Because that was, like I said, my favorite moment was him doing that. It's like, he's on the same level as Goku, finally. And, and I guess he was, kind of in GT how he went Super Saiyan 4, but instead of him using a machine, he actually just trained and got to it naturally. So it's even cooler than, when he did Super Saiyan 4 because he had to use a machine to go through all that stuff. So finally on the same level, then he just like defeats Frieza. Almost had like the most epic, destruction of a villain I can think of outside of, of course, Super Saiyan Gohan and versus Cell, because that's always going to be my number one moment of the entire mythos of Dragon Ball. But definitely almost had like a really epic defeat for Frieza. Again, another just crazy destruction for his character. But still got one. Instead of it being what I think a lot of people might have expected initially, which would have been the Kamehameha, that's what Frieza finally gets destroyed by in the end. Like the classic, really. Just like classic villain that's been gone forever, but we finally get him back. And classic character Goku does the classic move and just takes him out, and then sends him back to the little cocoon fairy world hell, which is hilarious. It's like it's hell. It's Frieza's hell. It's not hell because people are like, oh, it's just fluffy, teddy bears and stuff. You got Playboy bunny fairies flying around, which was like the first thing I noticed when the movie started. I was like, why is this fairy like a Playboy bunny? But that's Frieza's hell because he doesn't like that stuff. But it was just a nice peaceful place, just a nice beautiful field, and it was just the worst thing ever for him. So I definitely want to know what your like really favorite moments were, some of the biggest things, and out of what they kind of said as far as Goku and Vegeta teaming up, do you guys think that is for a third film that's going to kind of connect to this one? Because I feel like I mentioned in my review, these are probably the only two movies that have ever connected so much, except for like the Broly movies, which had the same villain, and that's really the only reason they connected. Do you guys think it's for a third film, or do you guys think that's set up for the series and how they have to come up, against whatever new villain they're gonna face, and then they're gonna start to work together in this series now that they are at the same level? So I definitely want to know what you guys think. I don't know, like I said, I don't know if they're doing another movie. I haven't really researched anything or looked at anything at all, honestly. Like, my friend told me he had a ticket for this, and it was like, cool. And that's why I went to see it, because otherwise I probably wouldn't have seen it for like another year. And I would have just eventually watched both movies online. But now I'm kind of in the Dragon Ball Z mindset, like, when's this coming out? Are they doing a third movie? Is it going to referencing, another movie or this show? So I want to know what you guys think, so please comment below, let me know. And of course, thanks for watching.